What's up, guys? Mitch from RespectMyRegion.com here with another episode of the RMR Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a special guest from our home region, music producer Jake One. How you doing today, Jake?
I'm great, man. I can't complain.
Yeah, I put it in the title, and I was talking about it a little bit before. I shouldn't just say music producer, Grammy nominated, Grammy Award winning, and we got some credentials on there, multi-platinum. We got a bunch of little bylines and hype buzzwords attached to it, man. But how you living, man, and what you up to right now?
Man, kind of just doing what I always do, working on new stuff. Home for a little bit. But nothing out of the ordinary. I feel like I've been doing the same thing for like the last 15 years. So it's like, unless something really strange and out of the ordinary is going on, it all kind of feels like the same to me.
Absolutely, man. And I know you're in the, I follow you on IG, so I've seen a little bit of progress. I know you're joining us from the home studio, but
yeah, for sure.
How you feel creating at home as opposed to, I know you used to have the Purple Door, and obviously you work in different studios around, but what's the home situation versus the big studio?
I don't think I ever made a big song in a big studio, honestly. I don't think I ever made a beat that ended up being like a big record, or even barely any songs I actually created in the big studio. Even when I'm not in town, I'm usually working at somebody's house. Like even like something like Brent Fire has been away. Like I happen to just be at one of the homies' house, and me and Sam made that loop in his pool house. You know what I mean? So like, and we went to the studio that day. None of that shit ended up making the cut for nothing. So I don't know. I just like the lack of pressure. I like to do it when I feel like it. I don't want to be beholden, like we're only working in these 3 hours. Like I might not feel like working during those 3 hours at all. So it's kind of always how I've done it. I don't even have like sound treatment in here. I'm just kind of used to being raw. And it's definitely been cool since I got this space built to have a bigger space to fit more of my stuff. Because before I was in like real confined spaces. So that's been dope.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a nice little space you can create, and you feel like, is it just the pressure? Or you feel like when you're making it home, you're able to just like kind of step outside or just like walk away and just kind of handle whatever you need to handle away from the music?
I don't have really a schedule at all, so it's just kind of whatever it strikes me. So, in the morning I take my daughter to school. I might go hit golf balls. I might go hang out at one of the homies' house for a little bit, whatever I'm doing, and then eventually I'll get home and turn on the equipment and go. But I feel like if I had to be somewhere at a certain time, then it's like a job, So like, I appreciate the freedom that I have in that way. I mean, we record some songs in the studio with like artists because, artists like to be in the big room, even if they're not using the board or nothing. They just like the environment and having like a party and all that. But as far as when I'm just making tracks, I just kind of like doing it by myself.
Yeah. And so what are you the type of guy that just kind of likes to sit down and create something from new, or you like to pick up on like old projects kind of where you left them off on drafts and stuff?
I start a lot of stuff and come back to it. And then I might come back to it and be like, oh, why didn't I finish this? I guess I'll finish this today. Or there's really no set way I do it at this point. I mean, if I'm working on somebody's album, it might be like, oh, I want something like this. So maybe I'll make something more in that vein, but usually I'm more just going through stuff I already made and been like, oh, I think this works, or this, send them a pack of beats or play them stuff in the studio kind of thing.
Yeah. And then, coming out of Seattle, obviously we're not, we've got a lot of respect, I think, for hip hop for a couple of different reasons, but we're also lacking the infrastructure and not a hotbed, if you will. We're not at LA, New York, and Atlanta or anything like that. Obviously you come from the production standpoint, which is a little bit different, right? Because your beats are tied to artists, where the brand people aren't buying into is the artist, right? That's what they buy into, and that's what we lack in this area. Did you feel, especially early on, I mean, I'm sure at this point it's a little bit different because you got so many connections, but early on, did you feel like a lot of that lack of infrastructure and kind of the downside of being in a small market, if you will?
I think, I've been making beats since maybe like 93 was when I first like got my first equipment and started messing around making beats. At that point, it was just not possible. I mean, we didn't. I mean, we had Mix a lot. He was definitely a couple of or maybe at least a generation before me. Like I remember being a little kid and Mix a lot popping and seeing him around. It's like, oh, that's Mix a lot. And the caddy came through 23rd Miller one day, like stuff like that, right? And I'm 10 years old. As I started making beats, you know, I'm 16 or whatever. It wasn't like I thought, oh, I'm gonna give this beat to, I don't know who the hot rapper was at that time, Ice Cube or something. That just wasn't going to happen. Like nobody did that around me. So I just didn't even know it was possible. I'd say like maybe 94, 95, Funk Daddy did Sideways for E40. And I had already followed him because I've listened to his stuff. They would play on the radio. And I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody from Seattle made a song for like E40. That's crazy. You know, it was like a big deal in that time. And just stuff like that kind of made me feel like it was possible. Once I got really more like on my beats and got better, I realized like it just wasn't going to happen here. We didn't have the artists. There was no light on us. And I started going to like these music conventions, like the Gavin convention and stuff like that. And I would just hand out beat tapes. And that's really how I started my whole thing. Like, I got a manager through that, and that led to a lot of my first records I did. But it just made me realize like, oh, if I gave out 20 tapes and I got like 12 calls, then I must have something, you know, because I didn't really know. We're here in our own bubble. I had Vitamin around me. He was just like kind of the king of what we were doing. He was so much more advanced than us when we were younger. So we all kind of learned from him. But he wasn't doing none of this shit. He was more, I'm going to produce my friends and the group in the neighborhood. And I saw how he struggled with that. And I was just like, man, I didn't have that. Like the rapper I had went with Vitamin when I was like a freshman in high school. So, you know, and I couldn't blame him. It was the total right decision at the time. So going out, you know, to just traveling to LA and giving my beats to like High Tech or somebody like that. I remember High Tech called me, wanted to sign me. It was probably like 95. I don't know. Yeah, I was out of high school, so 95. I was like, oh, I must really have something that's like kind of good if people want to sign me, you know. And that kind of put the battery in my back. And from then, I got lucky in a lot of ways that the internet happened like late 90s, early 2000s, and I could just fire beats off to people because then it made it open game. I didn't have to be in the studio with 50 or whoever was the high rapper. It was just who had the best beats, and I was competing. So, yeah, it's weird. It's crazy to see even like Lil Mosey happen from here. It's just like, damn, man, somebody from here did that. Like, that's incredible to me. You know what I mean? Like, I never would have thought that could really happen in that way. I mean, Macklemore obviously did it too, but I feel like it was like adjacent to rap. It wasn't really a hip hop all the way thing. But we've had a lot of talent over the years, man. It's just some people might have the talent, they don't have the work ethic. Some people have the work ethic, they don't have the talent. And it's hard for all those things to come together and getting the luck and the right person believing in them. You know, producer-wise, we've had a lot, though. I mean, the Business are from here. Those are my homies. I was with them when they had their shit. But they left. They moved to L.A. and then Atlanta. So they didn't really do nothing from here. I mean, Vitamin's done records. We got the Kid Culture dude who's from Federal Way or something like that. Royce, who does Mosey stuff. Mario from Everett did some big records. Like, it's dope now that, like, if you really have that shit and you stand out, you will get a chance, you know?
Yeah, the internet definitely has broken down these barriers. And it's funny, you entered, two of the biggest artists that have came out here the last decade, Macklemore, who definitely did the independent, very much the traditional independent grind and become a hometown hero and taking it. Whereas like Mosey was, he probably never even did a local show and he just blew up on SoundCloud.
A single show and he was like doing platinum records, which just made it even crazier, right? Like, that's just the people speaking. Like, I mean, there's plenty of people who get signed to labels that don't have any success. Like, that don't even matter no more, you know? They can only make it go once it's already moving, you know?
And that's the thing is it's so like even to to how you're talking about creating, there's no set formula for artists to take off. There's no set formula, and I
No,
think
not at all.
a lot of people get caught up in I got to copy and paste what this
Right.
person's doing, and it's like whatever works for someone is usually not going to work for someone else. It's gonna
Well,
be
I think
completely
for
different.
us, people have their preconceived notion about Seattle. So like, you're not going to be able to do like Young Thug from here. They already got Young Thug, and if they're going to take another one, it's going to be a dude from Atlanta. Like, they're not going to take a guy from Seattle. And it's funny. I've seen dudes that I've known for 15 years literally change the style every year to whatever's hot, and none of it works because they ain't doing their own shit.
Right.
You know.
Right. And that's when we interview, whether we're interviewing people in music or successful cannabis companies, everybody attributes kind of their success to like, I mean, some people fake it, but a lot of people I talk to, it's like authentically just being themselves, right? Like they're
Right.
just themselves, and that so happened to take off, and that's where I think a lot of people try and manufacture something, which you can to a certain extent in certain
Well,
situations.
I think it's easy to be like 80% of like somebody that's making big records now. Like, there's a lot of people in that they almost there, but they don't have the personality or they didn't do it first. So like, you know, I think at this point it's better to be like the absolute worst or the absolute best. Don't like just being okay doesn't there's so
Mhm.
much of that. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
when somebody's like really terrible, we're like, yo, did you hear this shit's crazy bad? Like, and people might be into it.
That's facts. That's facts. If it's someone on World Star Hip Hop that just looks hella unconventional, and you put the
Right.
like
I mean,
what
and
the
that was
fuck
part of
caption,
Mosey's
people
thing.
have to.
He was a little kid doing what he was doing. So like that was shocking, right? But then he came with the records that made it go.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what I mean. It's powerful what you said, right? Like there's already a Young Thug, and we see so many carbon copies in hip hop, and labels go the safe route and try and keep people in the same bubbles. But you look at the guys that are really pushing numbers, the top of the top, are all unique and kind of
Right.
there's really only one of them, right? There can't be
Right.
multiple Kendricks. There might be some clones in there that might go gold, but they're not reaching his status, right? Like
Right.
one person holds that title, and it's best to be yourself rather than I don't know some run of the mill, maybe get a 1 year run sounding like whatever's
It's
hot.
just, I mean, it just honestly, it's just harder to stand out if you're just doing the exact same things that everybody else is doing. I know it sounds, but then somebody might, people catch a song here and there doing that, but I don't know. You're not going to have a run doing this.
Absolutely. So, when it comes to your sound, you definitely have a very much like a signature sound. And I know kind of creating the samples has given you that ability to break out of that sound and get
Yeah.
a lot of placements at a much higher velocity. How do you feel like has your sound evolved over time? You feel like you've kept it what it is and just learned and put new things there, or you feel like you really push yourself to kind of get out of your box?
I think there's just a standard thing that I can't help but do sometimes. Like, it's just, I've just been doing this for so long. When I'm making beats by myself, like more of the hip hoppy thing, more traditional. And I'm always incorporating new things into that. But for the average person, they would be like, all right, yeah, that shit sounds just like the other one you did. So, the cool thing with the samples and the loops was it just like, it's weird because I wouldn't say I was creating from a different way. I just wasn't putting drums on things. When that
Mm,
started, it was literally me just taking drums off of beats I had made and be like, here, Southside, put your drums on them,
mm,
give it to Future. And that's really how it started working. Um, and then there was a while where I thought I was only going to be doing that because I was having so much success with it. And I'm like, oh, they don't want these old ass beats I'm doing. And then for whatever reason, these last couple of years, I'm back to
mm.
making beats again. So I just kind of go where what things are working. I'm making whatever I make. And then if, like for instance, when I made French Inhale for Wiz and Snoop, it was a beat that was probably 2 years old. And I made some other things in that time that sounded like that, but people like that so much. I was like, oh, I'm going to make some more of those. And one of those was Chance the Rapper Acid Rain. Like, if you
Mm.
listen to both beats, similar beat, similar like formula, but it's like sometimes the people have to tell me because I don't know. I'm just doing what I feel like doing in the moment. And, it's up to somebody to make the right song to bring it out and make it, past what I do.
Mm. And how much do you feel like, like in saying that, and I've heard on some of your behind the beat things, you talk about like, oh, I just use the same drums or something on two different records. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of producers, especially early, like try and be so different and try and like, I can't make the same sound. I gotta
Right.
switch up to something else. You feel like you just embrace like whatever just sounds dope, or
I think at a certain point, I really did create something that was mine, and I'm just like, I'm gonna own that. Like I don't think I really got that till I don't know 2010ish, like which was I've been making beats a long ass time at that point, but um, just kind of came up with something that I feel like even if people could try to redo it, it wouldn't sound the same because of the way I was putting the sounds together. It was unique. Um, I don't know. It's good and bad. Like there's definitely times where I'm like, oh shit, I feel like I made this beat 3,000 times. Like and I just won't finish it. And I'm like, how did I end up here again? This is not what I was trying to do. But then people, I don't know. Sometimes people want that. At this point, when somebody hits me up for beats, I have to ask them like, you got to give me like a specific era of what I did because
mm,
I don't know what like you're looking for because I've just done so many records at this point, and they are different. Like I had like the gospel thing I was doing for a while with the Drake record and some of the other ones. And then I was like, oh, I'm tired of this. I'm not sampling gospel again. It's funny. Then I sample gospel again and my life happened. So I'm like, damn, all right, maybe, maybe that's telling me something. But, it's like anything. You just play shit out in your own mind and then you might come back to it and it'll be fresh again.
yeah, I think that's something like me personally, as a whether it's been in past in music or just in business and being a creative. I feel like as you get older, you stop giving a fuck about shit that like doesn't matter. Younger, you like put these rules or these bumpers
For
on like
sure. For
how you
sure.
think, and as you get older, you just usually you get older and then you see a young person not adhere to these rules that you
Right.
built up, and then you're like, what the fuck did I even care
Well,
about?
when I was making my early beats, I was like, oh, I can't use the same snare twice ever.
Mm.
Like, it's like, man, I was spending so much time just finding new drums for every beat. It was dumb. But it probably made me sharper at what I do. So like it was in the end, it was a good thing. But I had older dudes around me that were like, you can't sample a reissue, you can't use it. Man, it was like I couldn't use a record past 1980 or something, or
Hmm.
it's all kind of crazy rules. And then at a certain point, I was like, I feel like when I listened to when Sun Village first came out with the first Fantastic tape, which is probably like 98, 99, I first got my hands on that in Detroit. And I was like, damn, man, he's just using anything. He don't give a fuck. But I love the music so much, it snapped me out all that dumb,
Right.
constrictive shit that I was putting on myself that didn't even matter. It was more like, I need to work on like getting better as a musician and that I can make anything work. Like that, the light bulb went on my head with that. I was like, man, he's using the same records I got. He's just doing it so much better than I am, you
Mm.
know? It's and just learning a little bit of theory, learning how to play, getting into the keyboards, and it just helped me get better.
Yeah, yeah. Once you break those rules down, it's funny. I remember that. My journey into where I got started with making beats. I've progressed out of that, but I definitely remember all these just unwritten rules about when you sample stuff. But then exactly, you start hearing hit records that are sampling like an R&B record that was released 2 months ago or something.
Right,
You're like,
right, right.
what? Like
And
that's
there's
against the
there's certain
rules.
things I won't do because I just think it's corny personally, but I can't tell somebody else not to do it because it's working. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I've had other producers, like big producers, be like, man, why don't you flip something that I'm just like, nah, I was like, I remember that song when it came out. It's not exciting to me to just put drums on that.
Mm,
But that's just, I don't come from that era of music. Like I come from like, you want to find a sample that nobody else has,
hmm.
that when people hear, be like, what is that? It's different. Um, so like, it's good and bad. I mean, it's giving me my own thing, but then sometimes I'm hard headed on like, just whatever I feel in my heart.
And how has that progressed sample digging, right? Because over the years, back in the day, if you were seeking online, it was, you can find maybe singles, right? Popular
Right.
singles. Now it's like everything and like whosampled.com. You can, you
Right.
can go find the obscure stuff. And it's just not, there's obviously more people.
I mean, yeah, everything is available. I mean, it's crazy. I still have a lot of records that aren't online, but I'm sure they'll all end up there at some point. It just takes one dude to put it on YouTube and it blows it up. But I mean, I still enjoy that more than damn near making music sometimes, like, because it just brings me back to the early days and that excitement I had when I first started. Because that's really what sparked the whole thing for me, was
Hmm.
getting into the records. Um, so now it's like, I could basically go in any record store and buy whatever the fuck I want. And sometimes I do too much. Sometimes I'm just like, oh man, I haven't even listened to these 200 records I bought last year. You know what I mean? I haven't even made beats with those. So it also, like, I think I had that like baseball collector brain where I'm like, oh, but I need this, because I want to put it on the wall with the other ones. And it's stupid sometimes, but like we all have our things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And how much are you physically, like, for sample digging? Are you physically digging for everything, or you fuck with the internet as well, like
It
YouTube?
just depends, man. I mean, sometimes I'll have like YouTube on, I'll be like, damn, what is that? That's dope. And I'll have to look on who sample. Like, somebody else already uses, is just too obvious. It's already good. Like, and some of that, and maybe I'll find the record from that. I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter where it comes from, personally, but it could be anything. I mean, I buy like unreleased 2-inch tapes to sample, like off eBay, and I
Mm.
have a 2-inch machine, which is just retarded. Like, that's just like it to me, it's just a different tier of taking it with records. So like, um, I'm always going to be the person that just wants the exclusive thing, like with that kind of thing.
And for your signature sound, obviously the drums and the fills, I feel like, is something that's real like akin to your sound. But
Yeah.
also, I don't know if you call it the risers or the sound effects. You got
Oh
a
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah. Just
specific
like little
lane.
little sweeper things on the. Um, I don't. You know who I really got that from, and he's funny. He's one of my best friends. DJ Khalil. He
Okay.
was like, I would listen to his beat tapes like in mid 2000s, and he had like the best like leads with delays on them. Like, damn, this is like, how does he just find a new one for every beat? And I'm like, oh shit, he's playing them. That's what it is. So I want to say the first one I really got that off on was Three Kings, and then, I mean, yeah, it's weird. I was working on a song earlier today, and I was going stupid with them. I'm like, all right, I gotta take some of these out. This is too much. But yeah, it's just like, some other things that come in and out. Like, I don't know. It's just making it more interesting.
That's why I think, like, obviously coming from a sample producer background, like, I think a lot of that the components of that is like less is more, right? And adding these subtle elements
Yeah.
to add a texture. And is that kind of how you found that, or,
I
or
mean,
why you like that?
it's just studying all the dudes that I really like their beats, like the Dillas and the Premiers. Like, Premier would always have the most weird like sound effect come in. And it was really just about having like two bars that you just wanted to listen to over and over. And production's kind of gone a different way now, where it's like dudes put like 4 beats in one, and
Hmm.
so you don't really fall in love with any part of it. But it is a lot of action going on. So sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'm just like, damn, this is a good loop. I'm just gonna use this.
And back to Seattle. Obviously, working in the industry, you deal with just people from all over. What do you feel like when people find out you're from? I mean, probably not as much finding out, but what do artists or people in the game talk to you about Seattle? Like, what's the consensus on this
It
area?
just depends on how old they are. Like, the people my age, they bring up Mix-a-Lot or something. It's weird. Like, I don't. It just doesn't come up that much. Like, I
Mm.
just don't hear about it. Like, oh, such and such is hot. Like, and it's funny. I remember when Al Alchemist was out here for Block Party one year, and I was gone. I don't remember where I was, but he saw Macklemore perform early, and I think it was like when he was having his first rise, and he just had like, probably 1,000 people at a show or something, which in that time was probably big. Um, and he was like, "Yo, the Macklemore dude's popping." I'm just like, "Yeah." It's like, but you wouldn't know if you weren't here, right?
Right.
So I think it took like people to see that in this environment. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like most of the dudes that I'm working with, I feel like they're so wrapped up in their own shit.
Mhm.
They don't care. Like only person I would say that kind of tries to like keep an ear out would be like Wale, but he's here a lot, so he's more connected to the community. So he wants to know what's popping. But like most of the guys are just coming through on a tour, and I kind of get it, because when I'm with my group, I'm not like, who's the best rapper in
Yeah.
Kansas City? Like, I don't know shit. Like, I'm probably like, where's the record store? Where's the best food? Like that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
But the other part is, people from like the East Coast think like Seattle's basically next to LA. Like I had somebody hit me last week who's like, yo, I'm in LA, come through. I'm like, I'm, a 3-hour flight, but okay.
Yeah, not just bopping down like that. And so, obviously, you're cooking up at home, and like you said, you still travel for music. Where is there still a lot of music to be made in the studio, or you feel like you can comfortably kind of sit
In
from home and do
in
most
the
of what you
studio,
do?
well, I would say 90% of the stuff I've done, I was not in the studio for
Yeah.
over the years. But I do feel lucky that I was there for certain things. Like I was there for part of Victory Lab, so I kind of seen them mixing that and finishing it. And that's just because the kind of dude Nip was. He just wanted everybody around that was part of it. Like he was just welcoming. Some of it's just not like that. You know what I mean? I think when you're in a studio, you can gas like the artist into doing something that you can't get them to do just sending beats, because they're more likely to record to whatever you send, whatever you play in the moment, depending on the situation. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to argue that I need to be in the studio, and I haven't honestly been in the studio with anybody since pandemic happened. So like, I went in with Mayor, from our own group in Miami 2 weeks ago, and that was the first session I had done this entire time. So it's kind of crazy. Like the music just keeps coming, though.
And for working on music, like, how important to you, or I guess how special is it when you like fuck with the artist as a person as opposed to just fucking with the music that you guys end up making?
I mean, I'm just more personally invested. Like if I just do a beat for a guy and I don't really know him and it breaks, I'm just gonna be like, I'm on to the next one. You know what I mean? Whereas if it's somebody I'm friends with, I actually really want the project to do well for them and me obviously as well. But like, yeah, I mean, I definitely have some good relationship with folks, and I just try not to be like, especially these dudes that are like kind of superstar kind of guys. I just don't bother them a lot. You know what I mean? Like it's more, if I got something to give them, then I might send them beats or, a quick what up, whatever it is. I'm not like, I don't just invade the situation and act like I'm somebody's best friend most of the time. Like I think I'm pretty genuine. And I don't really talk to them any different than I talk to my friends. So like, for the most part, sometimes I think it's probably not good I'm in the studio, because sometimes I'm giving too much of an opinion. Like there's been times where I'm like, we'll do a song for someone, I'll be like, I don't think it's that good. I'll tell them honestly. Or be like, we should do something different. This isn't the one. And they might not even end up using the song. So I don't know. It could go both ways on that,
Mm-hmm.
Depends if you're like the personality. Like people have big personalities can like sell the dream. I've seen that happen a lot of times where dudes come in there and like, look, everybody convinced that whatever they played is a hit. And then like the next day everybody listens to that shit was like, this is trash.
You're wrapped up in the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And, another question I have, obviously, we were talking right before we started, you got quite a list of Grammy nominations. You got an award on there. Does that bring more validation, or making just music that you like as a consumer or a listener? Which one is more validating?
Honestly, I didn't really ever care about the Grammys going up. Like it wasn't like something for me that was, I looked at as a barometer of success, because, like the records I liked weren't winning Grammys when I was coming up. I think I got nominated for the first time in like 2000, I don't know, 10 or 11. So I was like, oh, I guess I should go. My friend I produced the record with was like, man, you should go. It's like, this is a big deal. So I went and I was like, oh, that was cool. And I honestly didn't really care that much. And then we lost. And I was like, damn, that was kind of fucked up. I thought we were going to win. So then I went another year. We lost some more that year. But I think more than anything, like beyond the wins and the losses, if you just can rack up a lot of nominations, it means you're doing like stuff that's impactful, and that's what's important to me, honestly. I don't, whether there's so much behind the scenes shit that's happening on whether what makes things win or get nominated, where I'm sure there's a couple times I'm like, how did we not get nominated for this particular record? And then there's other ones I'm like, wow, that was surprising. I wouldn't expected this one to get nominated. So I feel like only in the last 5-10 years have people really started, at least in hip hop, caring about it. I feel like there was a year like Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince won, or maybe it was Hammer. I don't know. They boycotted the Grammys because they weren't showing it on TV, and it's so different now where they're like showing the rap song of the year like on TV, and you have rap is just so mainstream now.
Right.
It's very different. So like it's kind of hard to adjust to some of the things that we look at as success, because I really didn't do it or shoot for these things when I started.
Yeah. And so, being up here in the PNW, we're on the West Coast. We don't get quite lumped in with the California, the West Coast vibes that everyone's, I guess would associate the West Coast sound as,
Right.
and traditionally up here, and especially in your sound, I don't like boom bap. I like to call it more classic hip hop, if you will,
Right.
which is associated more with the East Coast. Do you feel like you draw more inspirations from the East or from the West, or kind of a melting pot of both?
I think it was a little of both. Early on, I didn't really have the skills to play to put the West Coast elements that I liked in the music I was doing. I think really since we started Tuxedo, I just got better at playing, and I feel like I incorporated a lot of that stuff into the beats I've been doing. So it's like it can work for more different kind of artists. Like the stuff I do for Larry June is definitely it's East Coast sounding kind of, but the bass lines are West Coast. Like that's the kind of shit I like. So, definitely early on I was like completely making like more East Coast sounding beats. But I would get like an E40 to rap on him though. Like I had he was one of the first people ever really buy a beat from me. So it struck a chord with them. And I think it's because I grew up on that kind of music. That was what was popular when I was in high school out here. That was dominating. They weren't playing Gangstar, and stuff like that. Me and my friends were, but it wasn't like what you heard playing out of people's cars.
And I think like over the years, right, like the sound barriers have been broken down where you call it boom bap, real hip hop, whatever the fuck
Right.
you want to put it in. I feel like the majority of albums feature at least one of those sounds. Even you look like Southern albums, right?
For sure. And I think like, these last however long I've been doing this, like, there's only a couple of people who can do that sound as good as I can do it. So there's like 5 to 10 people that get a shot to do this one song on a big album, you know what I mean, with that style. So I've been fortunate to get some of those off, and it's not easy because you're not doing the obvious shit that the artist is already doing. So I definitely take pride in being able to be part of some of these big records, doing what I do and not trying to like make whatever the hot thing is. I mean, I've been fortunate to be part of some of those hot records too, but like that, I feel like if I do the drums, it's not going to be that, because I'm just not, that's not my thing, the 808 thing though. I love it. I'm just not, I'm not good at it for whatever reason,
Yeah, it's not natural or what, it's not your sound, right? It's not the way you see it through your own lens. And I think, a lot of those records end up being like the shit where people really be like saying something off their chest. Like
right. A lot of times
shit.
it's the artist's favorite record. Like they'll be like, oh, this is the one, this is my favorite song, and it has to be because they know it's not going to be the song that's playing on radio. Like, I mean, it's funny. I was at Wally's concert on Monday, and the first big radio song I did was this one called Matrimony with Usher. And I'm listening to it in concert. I'm like, man, if I just would have not put those drums on this beat, it would have been so much bigger of a song, because it was too dirty. You know what I mean? Like you could only go so far on radio because like nothing on the radio sounded like that. And it still went pretty high up there, but I listened to that and was like, damn, I should have somebody else do the drums on that.
I know. How's it feel? Because that was one of those ones that people were playing at like weddings and shit. That was like the wedding
still playing them at weddings and stuff. Like, I'm happy any song when it lives on like that. It's definitely like, it's a trip when you make something that's like part of somebody's memory or life, and you're like, oh, this is gonna go on for a while, you know. And I've been fortunate to have, you know, a bunch of those at this point. So something like that, like I never thought out that when I made that beat, like, oh, this is gonna be a wedding song. Like, no, that's not what we were shooting for. But you know, him and Sam Duke came up with that hook, and they got Usher on it, and it turned into that. You know.
Yeah, no, that's fun. That's funny. Speaking back on that, that is dirty. And so, how much do you attribute? Obviously, you still using the ASR to this day, correct?
Back and forth. Like I would use some element of it usually in whatever I do.
And what you feel like made you hold on to that for so long in terms of like jumping on the new wave of software and things like that?
Man, I wanted to use software when it first came out. It just didn't click with me in my brain. I feel like only in the last like 3 years, so I've been able to make beats kind of in the computer that sound like I made them, you know, because I can make beats that are like just standard beats. But, you know, I've been using the ASR since, well, EPS first, but since like 96. So like, it's just a lot of years, and you kind of develop your own little tricks in there. And I think I have my own way of I did things in there where I'll even sit with other dudes who use ASR, and they'll be like, why would you do it that way? And I was like, I don't know. I thought that was the way you're supposed to do it. You know, we didn't have YouTube tutorials and all that stuff to like learn how to do these things. So you're literally just winging it. And sometimes that's what led to the best shit, because we created new styles out of that. I think the dope thing about the ASR more than anything is the sequencer is kind of trash. So forces you to incorporate your own rhythm into it a little more in your own method. So like when you hear a beat I do, it doesn't really sound like a beat Knots does, even though I've tried to make beats like him. I can't. Like, he's just got his thing he's so good at. Or Timberland, you know, it's like very different. I can hear the sonics of it, like, oh, I sound like an ASR beat, because it glues the sounds together in a way that I think nothing else does. But yeah, it's weird. Like, I also noticed when I was coming up, like when people would switch equipment, most of the time it wasn't for the better. You'd be like, oh man, I don't like the way such and such beats sound now because they're not using the old shit. So I was really scared about that. I didn't want to be one of those people when people heard the beat, they were like, I don't know, man, you need to get back on the ASR. And, you know, probably the last 3 years, most of the stuff I've done wasn't on the ASR. People still think it sounds the same. Nobody's like, oh man, I ain't an ASR beat, you know. So I feel like I finally figured it out.
And that was a great point at the start of that. You know, the workflow, I think, is what makes people and get to that signature sound, right? The things that they do and how they use their machines.
Right.
And these kids out here, they don't know. Pre YouTube University, man, it could take you.
It's funny. I was in Miami, and we had a session at the studio, and this guy Jimmy Douglas, who's like a legendary engineer, he was Timberland's engineer, and I was telling him, I was like, yeah, you know, I made everything on the ASR. He was like, oh man, you know, and we started talking about the way they were recording things out of there, and I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have thought to do it that way, but okay, I'm gonna use that now. And it was really kind of, you know, everybody just off in their corner doing stuff. And really, like, even if you're influenced by somebody that's only with your ear, you can't use the same method or same exact things that they have. So now it's so much harder to stand out if we're all sharing the same sounds, same equipment, same process. It's harder to be different, you know.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. And that's, yeah, everyone could download a cracked version of FL Studio today, watch the YouTube, you know, some YouTube videos and
right. And I think it's great too. Like, I mean, I hear a lot of dudes my age are complaining about it, but it's because they didn't have any competition. So like they could, you know, the guys in New York in the 90s, they got everything because all the rappers were there and they could go to the studio, whereas we didn't have that option. So now it is generally a world market of like dudes making beats. So you got to be really good, you know, like, not that obviously the guys in the 90s are great, but they weren't facing the world's music. Right. They weren't competing in that way. They were competing with, this dude lives down the street from me, so I could do a beat for him. And, you know, when you go to New York, and I remember one day I was in Queens with Large Professor, and I took like just a long ass walk with him around Queens. And he's just like, every block, he was like, Yeah, Onyx was in this barbershop. Yeah, LL lived right here. It was crazy. I mean, this is like a walk. And it's like, no wonder this shit happened. They were all in the same area. And they were all dope and different too.
Right.
But they had the action to get it off, you know? Whereas like Seattle didn't have the action. Like we had people who are dope who never got a shot, you know?
Right. Right. And so, speaking of this competition on the world, I just saw you just started a Beatstars
Yeah.
recently. Joining Beatstars in 2022. What sparked that interest?
Man, I just have so much beats, dude. I have a lot of beats, and I've talked to other producers, and they're like, saying they're doing pretty good on there, and I have people hitting me up for beats all the time, like, and I'm not gonna send a stranger like 20 beats of mine. I'm just not doing that. Like, that's something I would have done 10 years ago. I just had no interest in doing that now.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this way, when people are like, yo, I want to rap on one of your beats, go there, make the best song, then you can stand out, It is funny though. Like, I feel like I definitely had a couple of calls from like some of my older homies, like, yo, what are you doing, man? You're giving the music away. I was like, I'm gonna make this shit as much as I want. Like, at this point, I've been doing beats for 20 some years, damn near 30 years. Like, it's either gonna keep coming or it's not. I have like thousands of beats. It doesn't mean a lot to me personally. And that was one thing I remember. I don't know, it was probably 10 years ago. I was with Alchemist, and he was telling me like, man, you can't just like treasure a beat all crazy and hold it like, oh, I'm gonna get this to Jay-Z. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get man, you never gonna get them to her. They're not even gonna like that beat. Like, just keep making more shit. If you're dope, you'll keep making another banger. And I think doing this, sometimes you're like, oh man, I'm never gonna make one as big as this one that I made last year. And it eventually comes, and it's when you're not trying to do it, But yeah, Beatstars is something I'm trying out. I just thought it was interesting. I love all these ways that producers cut out everybody and just get to the money first. You know what I mean? Like, they're able to, before we had to give the manager money, and this guy that found the rapper and the label gets their cut. It's like, nah, this is direct hand to hand. Like, and there's dudes that are really focusing on it. They're making a lot of money. You'd be surprised, more than like some guys that make hit records. So there's so many different ways to turn this stuff into money than there was. And I'm not trying to be like the old dude that only thinks there's one way. Like, I feel like I that's one of the reasons why I did this. I was like, damn, I don't really need to do this, but I was like, this is some shit people wouldn't expect me to do, so I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I sent the link to a couple of the rapper homies, and they're like, "What? What? I can get a J-Cole beat at an
It's been going good
price,
so far,
man?"
and I haven't really pumped it like that. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I have a ton of music. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, so, and I'm probably not even gonna put old beats on there. It's just more like stuff I make, and I was like, oh, I'll throw it on there, whatever.
See, people getting the new exclusive shit, man. And what are you looking forward to hearing something from some unknown rapper spitting over your shit?
I would love to hear somebody who's like, oh man, that guy's amazing. It just, the odds are there'll be a couple, and there'll be a lot of people that aren't. So I mean, it's just like anything, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like some of the things that I've done in the past that really worked out well were things that I, like when I gave Chance the Rapper that beat just for free, it became a big song, and it's not like there was no intention in that. So like, I try to do that. I'm trying to get to the biggest artists. Like I'm just trying to do everything.
What are some of those moments? Because obviously, when you look at your track list, it's pretty surreal to just see the amount of hip hop heavyweights over the last couple decades, that have rapped over your shit. What are some of the names, and maybe it's all of them, but what are some of the names that have been just like real, like too surreal for you?
I mean, for me, it's usually the older guys, because the people that I looked up to before I was like making music, or so like when I did De La Soul, Rock Cocaine Flow, that was my first big record. Not like as in like a Billboard way, but like just, you know, it was like first time I made something, like everywhere I was going, it's like, oh, that beat's crazy, you know, like it was just and then I got to see them, you know, perform it live, and I was like, oh my god, this is the last song they're doing out of all their songs, like, you know, I was like, shit, I made that on 18th and Denny, like, what the fuck, you know, like, it just made it one day and it turned into that. So I mean, obviously those guys, their early stuff just feels more special because I was just young and naive. Let me think, like, I wanted to work with Rick Ross really bad. So, like, I was a super fan of his first couple albums. So when I started working with him, we did Three Kings and Money Dance and all these other ones. He's probably my favorite rapper of like the last 10 years, like just as far as his music I listen to the most. Um, I don't know, man. Like all of them kind of, you know, have different things that were special. Tuxedo was like, to make a song that went big like that with my own group was even more special. And, you know, get people take us around the world. Like that was not the intention with that. So like to have success with something like that, my own group, and have people buying tickets to come see us, that was crazy, you know? So yeah, it's been a lot. I mean, obviously this year or last year, the J. Cole record is the highest I've been on the Hot 100. So that was cool to like have a song that just dominated for a month. Like I never had one that big. So that was exciting. But at this point, I'm just happy every time I get another one. I'm like, oh man, I'm 45. This is supposed to have been over. You know, like these last 5 years wasn't supposed to happen, you know?
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned Three Kings. That's obviously, you know, I don't think that record gets the flowers that it deserves when you're looking at who's on that record. You know, you got Dre and Jay
Right.
on a single record, and there's not many producers that can say they got Dre rapping over their shit and Jay-Z rapping over their
I
shit.
mean, I think I did. I don't know. There's quite a few Dr. Dre songs out there that I did. I was signed to them 2008-ish. You know, I had a song deal with them, and yeah, I mean, I was like, you know, he's one of the reasons I started making beats. So like, you know, from Boys in the Hood days. So to go to the studio and meet him and know him, and you know, him like the stuff I do, it just, that's the validation to like, you're just like, oh, I guess I'm doing the right thing, you know?
Yeah, and then you know, you mentioned Rick Ross. Like, where do you feel? You know, I've said this, and I feel like a couple people say I feel like Rick Ross has like one of the best ears for beats in
I mean,
hip hop.
definitely. I always find it interesting when like a rapper that doesn't make beats can like have dudes, different people make beats that sound like him. Where it's like Justice League started it, right? So they did the original Maybach Music Luxury Tax. When I heard those, I was like, this is different shit. I was like, they're using samples, but it's way more intricate. There's all this programming and playing. I was like, fuck. I was like, I gotta do that, but like do it dirty because their stuff is clean. So that was like, they were a big influence. So I think a lot of people followed that style, and people had different variations of it. But like, I'll hear a beat somebody does, I'm like, that sounds like a Rick Ross beat. He don't make beats, you know what I mean? Like that's an incredible accomplishment to be having your own sound that you actually didn't make the music, but you sounded so good on this kind of record that everybody wanted to do it. You
Yeah, and
know?
he seems like a music nerd. Like, just I don't know,
Yeah, I
just
mean
listen to the sound.
he's old school hip hop. He knows that shit. So like he's I mean he's a character. I've done a lot of songs for him. I mean, there's a ton of unreleased shit too. So
What do you for you know, for other creatives out there that are, you know, aspiring to get to success? What are some of the things, like the key elements you feel like you can kind of attribute your success to? It doesn't have to be, you know, tips or tricks. It could be
right.
mindset. What are some of those things you feel like are pieces of game you can impart on the
I
younger
think for
generation?
me, just me personally, and I don't know if this is just whatever my level of talent is, but when I try to do something that I think other people want, it doesn't work. So like I've had opportunity to do like pop records and stuff, but it's just not my thing. I'm not good at it. I tried, but I wasn't good at it. The stuff that seems to work for me is when I just make the shit that comes from my heart. And it sounds so corny and stupid, but it just is. That's just what's worked for me. There's other people I know that like can just dibble and dabble and all kind of shit and be good at it. But I do think there's something to that. And whatever it is, like when you're chasing things just purely from a financial or success point of view, that's the only thing that determines whether it worked or not. Like I might make 5 beats that didn't go to anybody, but they made me better and got me to that beat that did go to somebody. You know, I think there's a lot of that where like it'll take me sometimes. Like I might have a couple months where I'm like, this shit ain't all the way clicking, and then there'll be one folder I make a 10. I was looking at this the other day. I was like going through some beats I did in 2020. I'm like, damn, I saw like 8 of the 10 beats in this one folder. Like, what the fuck was happening that week? Like, what was I thinking those 2 weeks? Why was that so much better than the month after? It's like, I don't know. It's I wish I could turn this. It's frustrating not be able that you can't turn it on and off. It's just not something you're in control of. But just finding the enjoyment in it, regardless.
Yeah, and that's crazy. I associate the same thing with music. I say like, because I do a lot of marketing shit, like marketing campaigns. You shape something, you create something, and then you put it out there. And you're not hitting a grand slam every time. Sometimes you're not even getting on base. You're striking out, and you can't control. Sometimes you feel it in your gut, and it ends up being that. Sometimes that shit that you're ready to throw away ends up being the best shit. It's hard. It's hard to fucking.
I mean, so much is just timing. I mean, but if you don't keep working, you're not going to catch your time. I mean, I also feel like I've seen a lot of people do this for a long time and catch a wave out of nowhere with no success. I have a friend that was probably doing this for 10 years and, limited success, and then changed a couple of things and just dominated for like 2 years, just caught a wave. And you just never know. You know what I mean? You just have to keep going. And eventually everybody gets a shot. I do believe that everybody that's really good at this does get a shot. Whether they capitalize on it, who knows? But everybody does get a shot.
Yeah, the universe is a crazy thing, man. There's a lot of things outside of our control. How do you discover like new artists, whether it's local talent that someone might put you on to, or like just artists up and coming in the game that you might want to work with? Like, do you feel like you discover them on your own, or people kind of put that across your desk, or?
It's weird because I feel like sometimes I have to come to it on my own. If people are pushing me on something, I'm like, I don't know. A lot of times it's just, I've been doing this so long that like a lot of the A&Rs or, those are like friends of mine. So like I've known for a long time. So they'll be like, I did a song on Corday's album in Dallas, who is his A&R I met like, I don't know, a long time ago. And he hit me, he was like, yo, I got this guy Corday. I think you would be a good fit with him. So I sent him some beats and it worked, and I'd seen his name and I checked him the stuff. I thought he was dope, but I didn't really think it was something I, fit into necessarily. With like the newer artist thing, like for instance, Larry June was somebody like my friends were telling me I need to work with. Like I'd seen his name, but I hadn't really all the way peeped his music, and a couple of my homies that I like actually trust their opinion because we liked a lot of the same stuff. He was like, man, you got to work with Larry June, I'm telling you. And then I like listened to, he had a tape of Harry Fraud, and I was like, damn, this is my favorite thing that came out all year. I played it a lot. I think I had posted like one of the songs on my Instagram story, and his engineer was following me, and he was like, yo, send us beats. His engineer, Todd. And that's how I started working with him. Like, it's so random sometimes, you know what I mean? There's no rhyme or reason to this shit.
And then for these new artists, right? Like obviously, if you're making that just decision to send someone records, like how is you liking their sound? And then obviously this is a career for you, so like you can't just there's an element of you can't just spend a lot of time investing in shit that's not going to be viable because it is a career for you. So how much of it is like, oh, this is a good, like a potentially a good way for me to provide for my family and some shit I like, or is it like how do you kind of draw that line?
I mean, it's kind of crazy at this point. Like, I really only do things I really like where they pay me a lot of money. Like, those are my 2 criteria. Like, I really like it, so I'm just gonna do it, or they're just paying me so much I'll get over it if I don't like it. And usually it doesn't get to that, but like, it's work, like what have I produced, like 400 songs the last 20 years or something.
Mm.
So every one of them isn't going to be that one, but some of the ones that I didn't think were the shit ended up being big records. So there's also like a point that I'm old, like I'm not supposed to know what the new wave is. I mean, I was in the studio when they were making the first Playboy Cardi album. My boy had signed him, and I just went to hang out with him. Southside's in there doing songs with him. I literally didn't know if he was the worst rapper or the best rapper. I was just puzzled, but it was intriguing. Like, yo, what is this? But it made me feel like, damn, am I not in touch anymore? And, I ended up co-producing a song on his album. And then like we went on tour for Tuxedo. I just remember going around and like was hearing this shit everywhere. And like just the joy that the kids have when that shit came on, you're just like, that, you just can't fake that, He just touched the heart in people like that, with the kids. So sometimes you just gotta be smart enough to get the fuck out the way and, let the people that have that passion determine it, and that's the cool thing I like with the co-productions, because it doesn't necessarily mean I got to sit in there and do the song with them. Like I can just start the record and be gone. And I think that works good for me, like how I like to work.
And how much is like that co-production and creating these samples and just the collaborator, I feel like hip hop from a production standpoint has become so much more collaborative over these last
for
few
sure.
years.
For sure.
Like how much has that just changed just kind of the way you work and the opportunities at hand?
Well, I mean, I'd say like I had the most commercial success I ever had doing that, because I just got on so many things in a short amount of time. But for me, what was cool about it is I've been making beats so long, very critical on like when I make a beat, what I think is like up to my standard, what I like. But for some reason, making music without drums, where I'm just playing, I don't think I have any filter with that shit. I'm just farting shit out, So I have my times where I don't feel like making beats, and I'll just start playing chords and riffing on stuff, and I'm like, all right, let's bounce it down. Here we go. Send the pack out. So I feel like that shit it's almost like a rapper freestyle. You know what I mean? Like, I think when I'm making that, it's not as deliberate as like how when I make beats. I think I've made beats for so long that like the snare isn't right. It's not moving. With the sample, it's like, can I make something catchy melody wise? And interesting textures. I think that's what I'm good at with that. It's just the textures I have, all these crazy keyboards, and I'm able to come up with stuff that sounds unique, and that seems to what's worked for that,
Yeah, and I think that whole lane of creation has just changed, right? Because you used to have sample driven hip hop and then people that played, and like
Right.
that is sample driven hip
Now
hop.
it's a little of everything.
Right.
And really the funny thing is, the people who own a lot of these catalogs that we were sampling from, the classics, they just got too greedy, man. So we started making these samples and making our own ideas. We're like, we're not giving these dickheads any more publishing. Like, they're taking all the money. So it was really just like something we were doing for that purpose that kind of started a whole new thing. And it wasn't intentional, really. And a lot of old schoolers are like, why does it take 10 people to do the beat and all this shit? Like, but if we credited every sample that was used on an old school record, there would have been 10 names on that shit too.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's good that the dude that played the bass gets his name on the credit. It should be that way. You know what I mean? So I think it's a lot more fair in that way, the way it's being done now. And it really did come up with a new sound, like with Southside and Metro and those guys did, using people's loops. People are still copying that shit to this day, like I feel like that's never going to turn around, there's so many people making loops now. Like, I feel like when I was first starting doing this around 2011, Dukes was, really like a good homie of mine. He pushed the line hard. Before him was a guy named Nick Brongers that was doing it. And then the floodgates just opened. Once they saw what he was, everybody just started copying him, right? Because that's what it is. Whatever's having success, everybody's going to do it.
And then how'd you get the name Snare Jordan? Who coined that?
Man, my boy RC in Toronto gave me that. I was getting ready to do my first drum kit, and he was like, "You should call it Snare Jordan." I was like, "Fuck, that's good." I kind of wish I just would have made that my producer name back in the day. That would have been way harder. But I might have got sued. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it might have been a lawsuit pending right there.
Yeah.
Um, and speaking of getting sued, on the business front for again back for the hungry up and comers. Maybe not people
Yeah.
that are quite at your status, but what are some things that people need to be cognizant of or be aware of in terms of like getting paid or early on for their beats?
Uh, Man, I just think it's more like don't sign things without a lawyer. I know it's hard to get a lawyer, but I think if you have something that has some potential, you're better off just holding off, not signing anything, and pushing that down the line. Because once you signed, you're locked into something. I think from the producer side, like especially with everybody doing all these, indie records and people, the producers need to fight for a piece of the master because that's where all the money is now. Um, don't just accept like a small amount of money. If they're not going to pay you your fee, then they got to give you part of the master, and hopefully, with that way, everybody comes up if it's successful. I like that part of it. It's like if it's a dud, then none of us get shit. That's cool. But if it does go, I want to be compensated just as much as the artist. If I'm taking a risk on somebody. Um, and that's something, I feel like I only realized that the last 3-4 years. It just took a couple songs I did where I got a piece of the master. I'm like, oh shit. It's like, why wasn't I fighting for this the whole time? So yeah, I mean, I don't know. And the others, this is just like a life thing. If it seems too good to be true, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
don't buy people's bullshit. There's a lot of people out here scamming. A lot of unnecessary middlemen out here. I mean, I think everybody's going to take a L. That's just part of the music business. Unfortunately, we all took L's. But just try to make sure that it's not too big of an L.
Yeah. Yeah, not a soul crushing one, man.
Yeah.
Um, and then I seen some comments of some people coming in here on Freeway and Jake One. Obviously, got some people, some fans of the work you've done. How much you got any new music on the way that's kind of not just you producing, but you working on a whole body of work? Is it?
I mean, I'm working on a new Freeway project right now. So we've been kind of doing songs here and there, but this time it's really gonna happen. I don't know when because we're still figuring everything out. It's like and really it's because somebody alerted both of us that it's been 12 years since the first album, which I mean, that's just ridiculous that it was 12 years ago. So there will be a new album this year for that. And I'm excited about it, man. Like the music, the shit we're doing is really dope. It's not exactly the same as the first album, but I think we captured the spirit so far. And it's just good to, like me and him always talk, but like it's just good to be doing this again with somebody that's really like my real life friend. And it was, it was dope because the first time I did this with him, I feel like he was carrying me. So I feel like this time I could carry my weight more so and bring something more to the table. So that's cool. But yeah, that'll probably be, who knows? I don't know. I got a couple other things people want to do with me. With rappers, but who knows if that's really gonna happen.
Would you got any interest in doing another producer album?
Man, I get asked that a lot, but it's just too much work and not enough. I don't get enough out of it for the work I have to put into it. And I've tried over the years, been various times. I start like White Van too. I mean, I feel like 2010 it almost happened, 2012. And then what ends up happening is I do songs, I reach out to somebody, do a song, and then they just want to use it on their album. So it ends up being a win for me anyway, but I think this is like a negative of me being in Seattle because the artists just aren't here that I want to work with. If I'm in LA, I could probably get something like that done in a couple months. But like when I do a project like that, it's not like I'm paying anybody up front. So it's like they got to really want to do it. And, a lot of time guys, they got their own shit they're worried about. I get it.
Yeah, I dig that. And so I got one more before we get you up out of here, man. You know, for what does it take like for on the local on the Seattle front? You know, I'm sure a lot of people either reach out to you or people would love to, and I'm not trying to offer that out there, but what does it take to kind of get on your radar in terms of someone that you're checking out, being like, oh, they got
I
a band
mean,
going on?
it's I mean, it's just like on anybody's radar. Like if you're making noise, I'm gonna hear about it. Like every single person that ended up being something, I heard about them early because they stood out and were dope. You know, like I mean, every once in a while there'll be like some, you know, old school homie tie or whatever. Like there's a producer I've been working with a little bit who I grew up with his dad. So, you know, he just came over to the house one day and he's actually good. Like a lot of times that person might not be good, you know? So, I don't know, man. I feel like if you're really dope, it everybody starts talking. We're all talking amongst each other, you know, like, you know, everybody wants to be the one up on something first, you know, especially locally. You know, I made it a point, like, I didn't want anybody to come out of here without me doing a song for them, you know, that made noise. And it's pretty much happened at this point. So whoever the next one is, I'm sure I'm going to catch them.
Yeah, we definitely seen, you know, definitely from the blog standpoint, seen you bless a couple people early in their rise.
For sure, for sure. I mean, sometimes it's like I just think I believe in them, their personality, and maybe the music isn't all the way there yet, or sometimes people just got the music, you know. So it's, or it might be a favor to, like, you know, somebody in their family. It's like I've lived here my whole life, so like there's the ties are strong, you know what I mean. But yeah, no, it's I don't think, like, it's really hard to find somebody that's like totally undiscovered, you know, like there's just not that much left at this point, you know. I mean, maybe somebody put their first song on SoundCloud or wherever. Was that where people put their new shit now? I feel like it's just on Spotify, right? Like,
Yeah. Everyone goes direct to streaming it nowadays. Yeah.
Right.
You might catch the Bandcamp for, you know, the artist that's like shit.
Right. And that's dope because, you know, you can like, if you have like a smaller fan base, but they're, you know, a legion, you can make some money on that and it makes it special. Sometimes I debate that, like, oh, should I just put this beat tape on Spotify or should I just only make it, like, I think the new beat tape I'm gonna drop, I might just make it vinyl only just cause I don't know. Cause I just want to make it different. I don't know.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of ways to monetize it. Well, I really appreciate you hopping on here, man. Really blessed by your presence this evening. I hope some people watching this got some game. That's what we always try to provide for everyone watching. But yeah, super appreciate you hopping on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is the Respect My Region podcast. If you guys are looking for some Jake One beats, he's on Beatstars now, man. So you got no excuses. You can go ahead and get that.
Yeah.
We'll be coming at you guys with more content.